The NBA playoffs are, without question, where legacies are made. They go down at the end of every year, and honestly, whether you like it or not, how you perform on that big stage tends to be the only thing people remember from players when the offseason starts, because the NBA has become very much a what have you done for me lately league. With so much time separating the end of the finals and the start of the next season, players that underperformed in the playoffs tend to go months being viewed as worse players than they really are, and if they find themselves in trade rumors, then the conversations and discussion can become very tedious and repetitive until something actually happens. This obviously applies to one Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers, which brings us to the topic of today's video. Ever since the end of the Sixers season, Ben has seen nothing but negativity and slander come his way because of how he performed against the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs. He's been headlined in trade rumors for months now, tons of reports have come out about him wanting to leave Philadelphia, and yet here we are in September, and he's still on the 76ers. In this video, I'll be discussing this situation in its entirety, how this will likely all play out, and why, whether you like it or not, the Sixers front office has actually handled it all pretty well up until this point. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. So even though pretty much all of you watching this video know the basic gist of the Ben Simmons situation, there will be some watching that are out of the loop, so very briefly I'll start things off by summarizing it all before we get into the real meat of the video. Ben Simmons, ever since he came into the NBA and began his career, has been a somewhat polarizing figure. He's technically a point guard, but he's 6'10" with the strength of a power forward, while also possessing the blazing speed equal to some of the fastest players in the whole league too, and those incredible physical tools are what made him such a tantalizing prospect and, for the most part, top-tier NBA player. However, what made his play so controversial is the fact that not only is he a generally poor shooter from the perimeter, but he avoids shooting from the outside altogether, and generally speaking, guards are players who typically take most of the outside shots, so debate has always roared on for years about whether Ben needs to change his ways. We've never really seen a player like Ben, so in many ways the people on both sides of the argument have incredibly valid points. For those people who defend Simmons' playstyle, they point out that while he may not shoot threes himself, he does create the most three-point shots for his teammates in the entire league through assists, as his passing and overall playmaking ability as someone who penetrates, sucks in the defense, then finds the open man, balances that out a bit, and then the fact that he's arguably also the best perimeter defender in the NBA as well, becomes icing on the cake. However, the people who harp on Simmons' inability to shoot also have very good points, as they got put on full display in the playoff series against the Hawks this year, as they point out that when defenses tighten up and focus extra hard on game planning for their opponent in a 7-game playoff series, Simmons' unwillingness to shoot becomes easier to game plan for, hence making him easier to slow down in the games that matter most. That ended up being exactly what happened against the Hawks. The Sixers lost that series, and now here we are with Simmons' individual stock around the league being lower than it has ever been. What has followed has been an entire offseason of drama, twists and turns, and bridges being burned. It all started when head coach Doc Rivers said in his post-game press conference following the Game 7 loss that he didn't know if Ben Simmons could be the point guard for a championship-winning team, which, however valid you may think that statement is to admit, isn't exactly encouraging for Simmons to hear. Plus, teammate Joel Embiid placed a lot of his frustration after that game into the play where Simmons passed out of a shot at the rim, saying that it was the turning point in the game. Again, even if there is some truth in these statements, Simmons is going to feel some type of way about them being said, and every report seems to state that those comments are at the core of Simmons now not wanting to return to the team. Right now, the relationship between Ben Simmons and the 76ers is not in a good spot at all, so we've been waiting for the team to trade him pretty much the entire offseason. However, at this moment, he still has yet to go anywhere, and a report just came out yesterday that says that the team has no plans to trade Ben before the start of the season if they do not receive a better offer for him than what they have already received. Simmons has threatened to not report to training camp, the relationship is very rocky there, and nothing about this is ideal. However, as you see in the title of the video, despite all of this, I still think the Sixers front office is handling this the right way, and now let me explain why that is. Despite all of the negativity surrounding Ben and the way he's viewed around the league because of his poor showing against the Hawks, despite his now rocky relationship with people within the team, and despite everything else going on, he is still a 3-time NBA All-Star and first-team All-Defense member who just finished second in the Defensive Player of the Year voting last season. It can obviously be debated how good he is, but he is still a pretty damn good player who makes the Sixers better on both ends of the floor because of those skills. Every metric backs this claim up, with the Sixers always performing much better with him out there. His defensive prowess is vital to the team's success, and his ability to create for others makes the lives of the team's role players much easier, as exemplified by how terrible the Sixers bench lineups were at creating offense when Ben Simmons was on the bench. The Sixers are at a point right now where competing to win a championship should be their only focus. Joel Embiid only has so many years of peak performance left in him before he starts to slow down, and with him now playing at an MVP level right now, they need to capitalize on that. They simply cannot afford to trade Simmons away for pennies on the dollar, and they also really can't afford to trade him away for future assets such as picks or young players, because that almost assuredly closes their window to compete right now. I realize the Sixers probably have a bit too high of a price tag for him at the moment, but they kind of have to, given these circumstances. For example, the Timberwolves are a team that has reportedly been interested in trading for Simmons, but they are unwilling to offer any of Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, or D'Angelo Russell, so of course the Sixers aren't interested in trading with them. Same goes for a team like the Sacramento Kings, who have shown interest but are unwilling to move a player in De'Aaron Fox who the Sixers would want. The Sixers are waiting for someone like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard to become available for them to then create a Godfather trade package featuring Simmons plus a ton of other assets, but neither of those players are available right now either, so the waiting game continues. If the right deal is not there, then you kind of have to force Simmons' hand a bit and call his bluff here. I personally highly doubt he would actually skip attending training camp because no NBA player has really ever done that, and it's not worth it. Not even James Harden last year skipped training camp when he was making it very known that he wanted to be traded. Harden instead showed up, started the season with the team, strung together a few really good games, and then a trade came. These guys don't want to have to give up millions of dollars over this kind of stuff, and believe me, skipping training camp would result in some hefty fines. There's also a human element to this, and when Simmons does come back to the team, he, Embiid, and Rivers can talk it all out and air out everything that needs to be said, then they can move on from there. Plus, if Simmons does show off any sort of improvement with his shooting to start the season, then the interest from other teams will go up, and the likelihood of a trade happening would also increase. So if he really wants out, that's the best way for him to make that happen. For now though, we're at a stalemate, and that's what seems to be most likely to continue until the start of the season. And while a trade would stir up a ton of excitement, forcing one to happen and getting poor value in return is not an option for the Sixers. So they are honestly handling it the best way possible in this sticky situation behind closed doors. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think will ultimately happen with Ben Simmons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.